Japan top court says forced sterilization unconstitutional. Demonstrators march in support of forced sterilization victims in 2018. Japan's top court has ruled as unconstitutional a defunct eugenics law which saw 16,500 disabled people forcibly sterilized between the 1950s and the 1990s. The Supreme Court also ordered the government to pay damages to 11 victims who were involved in the 5 cases that were heard on appeal. Wednesday's landmark ruling brings to an end a decades-long fight for justice by victims who have been demanding compensation and apology. After years of lawsuit, a 2019 law finally granted surviving victims damages, but some have continued to fight for higher compensation. In 4 of the cases brought to the court, the central government had appealed against the lower court compensation orders. In the 5th case, the 2 female plaintiffs had appealed against the dismissal of their claims, with the lower court citing the statute of limitations. Under a post-World War II law enacted in 1948, some 25,000 people, many of whom had inheritable disabilities, underwent surgeries to prevent them from having children deemed inferior. Japan's government acknowledges that 1,500 of the sterilization operations were performed without consent, although authorities claimed 8,500 other people consented to the procedures. Lawyers have said they were de facto forced into surgery because of the pressure they faced at the time. Victims were as young as 9 years old, according to the parliamentary report published in June last year. The law was repealed in 1996. I could never be a mother. On Wednesday, the Supreme Court also ruled that the 20-year statute of limitations could not be applied to the compensation claims in forced sterilization cases. Lawyers had argued that the statute had meant that some victims, especially those who had been sterilized without their knowledge, had learned of the surgery too late to meet the legal deadline. Forced sterilizations were most prevalent in the 1960s and 1970s during the post-war baby boom. Many of those forcibly sterilized had physical and intellectual disabilities, mental health problems, or chronic diseases such as leprosy. Physical restraint, anesthesia, and even deception were allowed for these operations, according to the government notice in 1953. From here, I believe that government must take a hard turn and move forward at full speed toward toward a full-fledged resolution, said lawyer Yutaka Yoshiyama, who represented 2 of the plaintiffs. He added that Japan has to date turned the blind eye to the horrific harm suffered by the victims and their family. Several of the victims who had sued the government died without receiving due reparations, he noted. Under the law passed in 2019 following one of the lawsuits, surviving victims can each receive the 3.2 million yen, $19,800 About 1,300 people have applied for this compensation, and 1,100 has been awarded so far, reports say. Still, for some of the victims, financial compensation can only go so far. When I found out, I realized I could never be a mother. It broke my heart. Yumi Suzuki, who was born with cerebral palsy and forcibly sterilized when she was just 12, told the BBC in a 2021 interview. The 68-year-old is among the 11 plaintiffs whose cases were brought to the court on Wednesday. I have faced discrimination from when I was small, but his was this was very different. It broke my heart. I don't want money. I want people to know what happened to us to make sure it never happens again. I want disabled people to be treated equally. We are not things, we are human beings.